All right, we've heard of things that kind of take the spine out of pressure. So we're going to start with taking gravity off the spine, as far as like I'm sitting here with the weight of my head on it. So what we'll do is we're going to rotate and place the back of the pelvis on our bolster, and I'm going to show at the wall. Now I want you to have your belt connected. I'm already going to have it buckled up in a loop because we'll place it hopefully below the knees for today's entry pose. It's called Viparita Karani. But have a little space between the wall and your bolster. Okay, you don't have to put a block there. If you like to, you may. But a little bit of a gap so it's very easy to get upside down. If you're used to having the bolster right against the wall or you're in the middle of the room, you know how to take care of yourself so you feel like you're getting into the shape of reversing the flow back to the brain. So as we sit on our bolster, if you're going to be at the wall going upside down, you're going to sit on the edge of it, on the short end. And you do want to be right on the edge. Okay, so the other side of the bolster lifts up like a teeter-totter. And you're going to roll on the back of the pelvis, the sacrum, to bring the legs upside down. Now you can tell that when you're getting into the shape, now this doesn't mean you have to watch me exactly, but I want you to get into that world of feeling. When you start inverting, right, you're reversing that gravitational pull on the leg muscles. And what's the most beneficial is really for the brain, right? So I'm going to take the belt, and I am going to add my blanket maybe, but I'm going to see how this feels minus too much pressure under my head so that I can work towards extension of my cervical vertebrae. Okay, so all the vertebral column is touching down except for that neck space, right? You can feel from the brainstem up to the occiput, there's that wonderful curve. Okay, now we're going to take our belt and we're going to scoop up, or you can just buckle it around the legs. And now in this variation, the belt would be below the knees, now meaning towards your ankles. I tend to teach it over the last several decades with the belt here, but learning the reasoning behind the gravitational flow in the legs and the leg position. I want you to turn your heels out, your feet turning in slightly. So if you are mid-room with this, like so, because the legs are belted, it's going to bring you a little bit more core stimulation or abdominal muscle kind of starting to strengthen. Okay, so have the belt so it moves the legs close enough so they're about hips width. They're not trying to push out and prove any flexibility whatsoever. Okay, the reason for the belt is that you won't be adding as much muscular tension and effort in your legs. That's why we use the belt. Okay, so rest your tailbone. If you want to add an eye pillow across your eyes, or if you decide to just try out the blanket, place it right to the occiput, right? So at the spot right above the brainstem and above, and noticing if that feels like it helps you elongate, right? So if I place it about that spot, and then I just kind of let the weight of my head rest heavy on the blanket, and I just kind of tug on the blanket with my hands on the edge, just giving myself a little traction. And then the arms opening, chest, and then beginning to trace the spatial outline from my feet, the heels out, the feet turning in, tracing it down, beginning to energize that flow of lymph and returning the blood and the lymph back towards your heart. Giving your body its much needed moments here to reset into the yoga practice. And just gathering your attention on the even rhythm of your breath. And just feeling if the abdomen expands on the inhale. And noticing with that expansion, the kind of carving or circulation in the back of the pelvis, into the tailbone zone. And let the belt support you. So if you feel that there's a little too much restriction with the belt, you don't have to use it. It's there to support you. So giving their body just a few more moments. And I want to start adding some offerings with the leg position for shifting that circulation. So bending your knees, okay, and moving your belt up to your feet. So you're going to loosen it up quite a bit. In fact, you might decide just to make that belt loop quite expansive here. And then you can always tighten it down, right? When your legs are lifted, you can just grab a hold of the belt, the tail of it, and pull. But with the legs out, it changes some of this offering of contour with the hips, with the pelvis, because it's a wider stance. And then it starts to bring that circulation into the much needed leg pit, right? Or pelvic floor. So reversing that flow, still try to keep the heels moving outwards slightly. I don't want you to try to completely work your ankles to a place of not tolerating that movement. But notice how the feet kind of pivot in. The knees don't twist, right? So I'm able to isolate these parts. So the legs lift. Now, if you're at the wall, you have that benefit to rest against the wall, right? So you're not straining. But sometimes being up in the air with it actually feels pretty good too. Okay. So let's reach the arms so they're back overhead if possible. Okay. If you have that blanket, fine. If you decide to go minus the blanket, and then bring the hands around to the elbows and just hold on to the elbows to reach the torso like you're kind of wiggling back the shoulder blades and expanding in the armpits. And just think if we can sometimes start a class like this and just reverse the flow in the body so when we get to our sage collection and other shapes, we're kind of elongated before we get there. So letting the eyes rest, feeling. And then bending the knees, reaching up to the belt, and as you hold one edge of it, one side, you're going to pull and draw your feet together. And try to let the legs, they're moved away from the wall for all of us now. You can feel the tailbone exactly, okay? And as you reach your belt up, and maybe the tail of it kind of gets over towards your face, but just bring the palms together in a prayer position. So the palms in, the belt loop is right towards the web space between the thumb and the index finger. So you feel that verticality of the legs straight up, kind of like you do with the sandbag. But right now, there's nothing pushing on them. So they're just a few more moments without being stepped into, right? The feet don't have to be stepped into right now. Draining out around the ankles, the calves, the knees, just refreshing the legs and the feet. Okay. Feel when they're turned out slightly, and then feel when you try to get the heels pushing out slightly. All right, and now let's bend the knees, and we're going to take the belt off of our feet, and we'll place the feet to the wall, or if you're not at the wall, you're going to be mid-room, so you get extra credit today. Okay, belt goes aside. We're going to be using it in a little while, though, so don't toss it around. Place the ball center of the knees, okay? And I'm going to shift back a little bit. So what I want you to do for a moment here is slide your bolster off to the side yard. The right side yard would be the best. Now, if you're not using the wall, what you're going to do is you'll slide back and you'll use your bolster actually under your feet. That's what you're going to do. I got to think about those of us without the wall. Okay, so no blanket. Okay, lift and lower the spine. Now, if you're really close to the wall, it's going to feel like you're going up into a shoulder stand. So you might have to scoot back a little bit. Those of us that are at the wall, remember, we're using the wall. Those of us without can have our feet on the bolster. And we're going to lift and elongate through the spine. That's had all its weight taken off of it for a moment. We didn't have our head above, so now we're coming back to a new spine, if that could be possible. New spines. All right, lift the hips and stretch your arms overhead and lower the spine. Something you could add to this that is kind of interesting to do is you can take your belt, and when you reach your arms overhead holding the belt, it kind of reinforces that stretch in the back muscles, I find. Okay, so I elongate down. I feel the curve of the lower back. Push into your feet, which are either at the wall or the bolster. Stretch overhead and try to relax how much you're pushing your hips. Right? You're not trying to get your hips as high as possible. You're just letting the spine and the tailbone engage in the lift. Meaning, I don't want you to grip around your tailbone. Use the wall or the bolster to push your feet into and strengthen your glutes. Okay, last one. All right. Now, as we feel the flexing of the back of the pelvis, which is rounding, and then we feel the arching right here with the feet pushing. Okay, now let go of the belt if you have that. And as you lower down, bring your hands to the thighs and remove the ball and place it under the back of your pelvis at your sacrum. Okay. Again, you can have your blanket under your head or not. It's all up to you. Okay, so I'm hoping we're getting some energy focus in our spine, our pelvis. So when you wag your tail, the ball is at the back of the pelvis, and you move your hips side to side. And feel as you're kind of dragging the skin, right? We hold tension in our tissues. It's nothing new to learn today. Okay. And another year, right? Another day, in fact. So I want you to find where you can kind of burrow into maybe the edge of the sacrum towards the glute. Now the glute ridges. Glute ridge. Okay. All right. Now ball stays at the base of the spine. I wouldn't have it too low. So base of the spine. Bring your right foot over to the left knee. And then bring your knees to your chest. Hold on to the back of the left thigh. Or keep your left foot at the wall. Okay. Or the bolster. Yeah, I think I have a preference on this one to keep it at the wall and just kind of tease the traction in my lower back, and then feeling the ribs expand out, because we want the heart center to also feel openness in this beginning series. So it's suggesting that stretch of the ribs, and where there are ribs, right, there are lungs, there are breathing muscles. So trying to keep this opening, okay? Now the left leg can slide up, it can slide down, it can also be off the wall towards you. Okay, and feel when you switch sides, the opportunity, right, maybe to bring your legs up again, to invert, to reverse that gravitational pull on the leg muscles, and then have a balancing opportunity. And then right foot to the wall and left leg crosses over. And now if you've got some challenges around the knee, or you feel a little bit of swelling or just discomfort, use the inversions well, right? These can be really helpful. So let's just say this shape is too much for your knee. You could stay with this, right? You don't have to follow exactly. You can have the right leg a little bit more extended versus bending, okay? So kind of find the steps going into it, feeling the concentration of your hip, okay? And these are kind of subtle pathways into these areas of the body, right? They're not harsh. You can make them more, you can amplify them more, you can make them a little more calming. So what I find, if I put my weight on the ball and I notice the awareness of my diaphragm, my belly moving with my breath, if I don't notice that, I'm kind of more tense, right? So if you can't feel the breath equation, right, you're probably tensing up or just going pose by pose and not really integrating them, right? So noticing that. Okay, once anything feels too much in a knee or anything, it's time to get out, right? So when we switcheroo, what I want us to do now is we're going to start moving the ball just on the glute. So I want you to slide back enough. Okay, I like to use the wall for this part. Okay, we rarely do this with the wall. So we're going to put the ball to the right rear. And when we roll, of course, if you don't have the wall, your feet are on the floor or the bolster, right? But I get a little more deep tissue work when my feet are up higher. Okay. So I'm on the right glute. You can be on the left. You only have two choices. Okay. Either side is fine to begin. If you've got a favorite side or you can't wait to get in there. And you can kind of walk your feet on the wall and feeling when you get to the corners of the glute muscle, right? So if I'm on my back, right? You're on your back, the ball is here. Now you can also use things like the tune-up balls, right? The ones that are still soft therapy balls but smaller. Those can be kind of nice to use here if you use them together, right? Deep work. However, I'm a bigger fan of softer ones for connective tissue and arthritis, and it's just not aggravating. Period. Right? It's a more global, broader, connective massage in the skin. Okay, so now as we get ready to go to side two, put your feet into the wall or the bolster, lift and move to the second side, and then glide across the glute. It's pretty simple. It's so simple. You're on the ball is touching to your left rear, okay, and as you're gliding, or your rear of choice, whichever side you're on, and then if you feel like you want your feet on the floor for it, that's fine. Okay, if you just keep slip sliding away, no big deal. It's just a little easier on the knee, right? Because I just have less pressure, bending the knee. I'm focusing on just kind of drilling into the left glute area. And you can also really focus on moving your hips so you're wagging your tail a lot. Okay, and a lot into the ball. Just take a few more moments here, glide across. Pressing and moving. Okay, and notice if you press and move, and if you ever press and move back the other direction. Because I find I initiate it, my reaction is I initiate the pressure and then I glide, and then I don't initiate that pressure until I go back to the first part of the massage. So, not that you have to become a professional massage therapist right now, but it's interesting to notice how you learn pressure and movement and gliding. It's a whole skill, right? It's a whole career. All right, now let's come on into our crossover, something familiar. All right, so when you come down from the wall, I want you to slide back enough so that you have your blanket and your sandbag. Okay, we got a blanket under our head. We have a sandbag to the side somewhere. And we're going to just simply bring the knees in towards the chest first. Place the ball between the knees and then let the knees go side to side. It's really everything from the navel down is rocking side to side. And feeling this crossing of the pelvis, the touching from the floor into the pelvis. You can feel the bones touching down across the ilium. Okay. But when you're moving, give yourself freedom to almost like you're drawing a smiley face across the lower back towards the glutes. So it's not strictly side to side horizontal. It's moving and squeezing towards the armpit a little bit, right? Okay, you don't have to touch your armpit with your knees, but having that motion. Okay. We'll call it the smiling horizontal. I'll come up with a name for it, maybe, if I'm lucky. All right, so as we come in center, I don't know about you, but that gives me a nice warm up for the sacroiliac, right? So I'm rolling across those bones. And now when I take the ball out, I'm going to move the bolster to the right side of my mat. And I'm going to cross the left leg to the bolster, but both legs are really bending. It's almost as if you did this side to side movement, right? You still have the knees bent almost that much, right? Both of them. So I rest my right hip and then I stretch the left leg over. Okay. The ball, however, is a nice option at the back of your pelvis. And then add that sandbag if you like. Okay. Try with that touch of the sand on top of the side of the left leg. Try to get that so it kind of hugs to your hip a little bit. I prefer the sand a little further down towards the middle. Okay, it feels good on my back, but it's up to you because we've come down from being upside down. We want to start to kind of build that support in our lower back, the back of the pelvis and the kidneys. So as your left arm stretches open, right, the ribs might not have the capacity to twist very much, but we sure want them to. So you might start with turning your head to the left. Some of us don't like to do that in these twists, these types of twists. So we have our head straight center. Okay, so taking the time, even if you decide to put an eye pillow on and have your head centered, that's okay. And then as you sink in, one of the focus points today is to be able to settle into some shapes for enough time to begin to feel the effects, right? When you come out, you'll feel the surrounding tissue kind of revived, fresh blood supply, right? And sensation will pull into the area that we're focusing. So right now, we have a squeezing effect in the abdominal organs. This is really about the digestive tract, movement in there, and we're using the legs to support that action in the abdominals. So the right arm could be out, it could be resting on your sand, it could be touching to your belly. And just feel the layers of awareness, slowly breathing. Now, are you tightening in the shoulders at all? If it's too grippy, you might have to slide the left arm down so that you can relax. And now we'll come out. Now, one reason to come out of the pose maybe before this is if you start getting tingling, you go numb in the arm, you lose sensation, there's no blood flow at that point, not going to be therapeutic, not going to be healing. So just notice that it could be the sand, it could be your positioning, it could be too much twisting. So you can always modify. And if you feel like I need to be in this longer, but you have a high tolerance, then you can stay longer. All right. So move the sand aside from the left hip. And then I think the counter motions are important to me for my back comfort. So I like a little windshield wiper, not too fast, just to kind of sense, okay, I'm okay, my pelvis is fine. This is some deep work. I'm going into the second side with all good intentions. I was taught not to bring the knees in to not shock the sacrum. So I don't know what your schooling has been, but I've had that burned in my memory in yoga. So I'm very careful in case my teacher sees me doing that. Some people want to bring their knees in. So if that feels right for you, you can do that when you're done with the two twists. I would say it's better when you're finishing on the second side. So take your bolster to the left side. Okay, and recall, we have both knees bending to the left. So I'm just gonna, like I had the ball center and I have the knees side to side like that, I'm gonna just swing the right leg over to the left, okay? So give it a try and noticing when you're moving, it is okay for you to roll into your left shoulder. It's not like you're not bad if you or rolling into it. So notice there is a request in this one to really work in the abdominal organs. These are natural ways to help the circulation, the digestive tract. These are truly natural ways. So you might find, okay, I'm going to focus just on the abdominals. I don't want to focus on my hip, necessarily on my back. What's another way you can do this? You can put the bolster center of the thighs if your back doesn't like the twist, and bring the knees to the left. You can put a block between them, a blanket on top of the bolster, a block under the short end of the bolster. I kind of like that a lot. If I have trouble getting my leg over, people find that to be really helpful. So ball, back of the pelvis, sand, outer right thigh. You be the decider. Where does it apply for you? So I think the application is important, to move it around if you're not quite comfortable with it, or to remove it. Okay, there's nothing says you have to keep it on. Okay, we won't know. So putting your sand aid on, and once that sand is on the muscle belly, right, you could even just kind of squeeze just above the side of the knee in the IT band, and just kind of circulate and rub that area. And that is pretty resistant. So you might even turn the sandbag kind of across it, slant it, and just kind of feel, oh, yeah, that feels pretty good on my IT band. Some people do things like, this is what I like quite a bit. You get a tune-up ball or a tennis ball and you put it under the sandbag, right on the IT band where you can tolerate it. And then you have a little bit of deep touch in that spot that's tight. That's something that we might add in. I really like that kind of method, because you're not using your hand and pushing and, it's hurting your hand and your wrist and your thumb. You just put the ball there and the sand holds it. Okay. So lots of ideas for getting some acupressure in this kind of thing. Okay, now right arm is open. Don't overdo it, right? There's nothing that says you have to stretch it as far out as possible. Kind of feel the clavicle, feeling up into this just above the collarbone, right, and to the circulation of the lymph here. You can even rub that area, massage it a little bit, or just let your hand rest on your belly. You can have an eye pillow on, or let your head roll to the right. And just receiving the pose. And if you notice any distractions in the abdominal sounds, right, let them continue. But don't the abdominal sounds. So feeling if there is that movement of the breath, I so hope you are breathing. And you can feel the tug, right? There's a bit of squeezing occurring in the organs here. Yeah, we will definitely work our way through them after we come out of this one. So we're going to take something more relaxing for the abdominals, and then we'll work our way towards flexing and extending. So as you take a few more slow breaths here, the leg extends a little bit and doesn't stay bent the whole time. That's okay. If the right foot kind of drops off the bolster, remember we're using the shapes to get into the body, to heal in the body, not trying to get the body into the shape, right? So keep in mind what the practice is for. This type of practice therapeutically. I mean, we're simply just changing our experience of our limbs, our extremities, and our core the entire time. So good attention on yourself. Good intention for yourself. Okay, now notice the outer right hip. So let's stay with that, because we've got an outer right hip that's has a little awakening going on. So we'll take the sand to the top of the thigh. So I'm going to move my bolster, but you don't need to move yours. I just want you to know so you can see what we're going into. So the left leg is bending, the bottom leg. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch my right leg straight down. Yes, I have a ball stuck to my back, so I'm going to move that. And I want you, this is why the wall can be so amazing. I do love walls for this. Is my right foot is at the wall, so it gives me this anchor and feedback into my spine. Okay, my sand is on the top of that right thigh, and then I'm going to take my belt and I'm going to slide the loop under my left foot. Now, this might be a little troubling at first. You might have to bend your right knee just to get this belt under your left foot. So that's normal. Okay. Now, once the belt is on that left foot, I'm going to make that loop as big as I can so I can easily get it around my head, not my neck. So I hesitate to tell you how long it should be or how big it should be. I think it's good to explore, okay? Like maybe it's pretty big and you're realizing you're not getting support. Okay, so I think there's a personal focus on this to customize it for your traction and your extension. Because now our neck is, it has this nice extension here, okay? So the neck, in some ways, isn't very tense on this one. If you kind of hold the neck, getting it in traction can be nice. So the arms rest down. They can also rest out to the sides. I try to get my shoulders to roll a little bit around and just resting down, not squeezing them to the spine, but resting them down. Now, the last pose we had squeezing in the abdominals. So right now I want you to purposely relax the navel center just with the movement of the breath. Now we're reversing the flow in that left leg back to the abdominals. Right, the core is getting that reverse flow. This is your science class today. Okay, so take the moments. If you don't use the wall, it's fine, right? You can have your sand on the right thigh. Just don't turn the right foot out, right? The wall can keep the foot straight up and down. Okay. Okay, now let's get a little bit more hamstring emphasis here. So we're going to take our hands to the sides of our head and then slide the belt off. Bring your arms overhead, head on the blanket or the floor. I recommend a blanket for this one, some padding, just a little bit of elevation. And then as you stretch the leg back, bend the knee a little bit, bend the knee a little bit as you reach your arms back overhead. Okay, if the belt loop is really too wide and you can't get any elongation in the arms, remember you're not pulling the belt with your hands or squeezing it. The hands are reaching straight up. The belt's between the webbing of my thumb and my index. To be honest, mine is a little bit middle of my index fingers. It's not in the webbing. That feels better for me. Okay. All right, now push with your foot like you're pushing towards the base. Push, push, push. Feel the right foot pushing. Inhale. And exhale and stretch one more time overhead. I don't think your leg's going to go overhead, but let's just let the arms reach. Okay, then come back to what you feel is kind of in the middle path, right in the center-ish, straight up. Okay. Right hand comes down, moves the sand to the belly. Right, especially after all those twists, we're going to go back to the belly. Okay. Right leg goes up. We're doing tons of inversions today. Well, good for us, good for our brains. And then left leg goes down. And we switch the sand. Now take your time. If you feel like, I like this, what I always find interesting is when I put my second leg down, I can feel somewhat of a little mini difference on one side to the next, my range of motion. It's getting better. It's getting more even. I think wall work has really helped. I probably should do it more often to help with balancing the muscular tension in each leg to get some equilibrium. Okay, so the wall gives you great feedback. So if my arms are reaching, I'm going to take the belt to my right foot now And the sand on the left thigh. Now you get to decide, does the sand go a little bit down? Do you pivot the sandbag? Do you let your head lean back? Yeah. Do you push the belt so it's a little bit above the occiput? I do. I do not want the belt around my neck at all. Right? I know that's not a good spot for the belt, period. So I have it above my ears, right? This is a really good point of contact. It's above the lymph zone here in C1, C2, right? But it still gives that energy there, right? The circulation. So that's what I find interesting about things like circulation focus for lymph and also the tapping because it's the vibration that stimulates. So, just explore. I mean, you could be, sweeping the neck a little bit, do some brushing with your hands. You don't have to go get a brush. But I'm going to focus on this muscular awareness of my right leg. Yeah, so if it's the knee that has challenges, if you got one of those in your life, just kind of notice, maybe close your eyes and just feel what's up with this, right? Where do I collect pockets of tension, holding cells, right? You're gonna make them up, right? Just by living in your body. You might not want to investigate. It might be too much. So taking the moments here, you are welcome to take the belt off your head anytime. If you decide I'm ready for this one, I'm going there, that's great. The key is the right leg is up and the left leg is extending down with the sand. And with all this inversion work, you may not really appreciate it till it's over, I think, with so much legs up variation so far. But it does have an effect, right? You can feel it. You can get closer to the center of the brain when you're breathing, calming. So as I feel where my tailbone is, I take the belt, if you haven't already, off your head. Feel your foot push away. Remember, it doesn't have to go overhead with your arms. Just feel the traction in the hamstring. There's something to be said for verticality versus struggling in the hamstring and tugging on it, right? How is it going to elongate and feel safe? Right? That's a nervous system question more than a hamstring question. Okay, now we're going to move the arms so they're over our face. Whether you're holding the belt with your hands or your palms are together, right? You could even hold the belt like this. You don't have to follow this choreography, right? It's still the leg is up. Okay, final leg float. And then we'll come around to spine massage with movement. Okay, so I'm going to take the sand off and bring both feet up and push out. Now, without a bolster under your pelvis, it might actually feel a little bit odd, okay? So let the rocking happen. So you're going to the contour, maybe make the loop smaller, not quite so wide. It might be too much. I notice if my legs are in too wide of a float, doesn't feel as good. I almost feel like this tingly, zappy feeling on the SI joint. So I bring them in a little bit. Of course, that's just from, trying to just really analyze what's the exact perfect range for myself. So take just a few moments now, kind of calculate sacrum, back of pelvis, wide pelvic basin like a bowl here. We got a bowl going at the base and up, right? The legs are dropping into the hip sockets, the thigh bones. Okay, so bend the knees, grab your belt, pull, slide your feet together. And now, these feet haven't been stepped on for a while. We're going to put a little bit of energy into the feet. So shake out the legs and let's go into rolling to one side and come around to hands and knees. Now, I'm going to show variation. It's not going to be hand full pattern. So grab your bolster. Let's start with it lengthwise under. And if you're near the wall, remember you only want to feel the wall at your feet, not feel like it's bending your knees a lot. You don't want to feel too close. So So go forward like you're getting on a surfboard here. You're going to elongate your front span. So the knees are certainly apart, because if I have my knees too close together, it tightens my lower back, right? In the forward fold here. So I want you to lower down. I did say we're going to do spine massage movement. We'll get there. I want this to be really comfortable for our core and our back first. So this is a little, for me, this is actually a vulnerable shape for me. Just because of scar tissue and abdominals, but it is a nice touch for me to feel that connection. So feel your feet push back and lift up the knees. Now, if I'm not on the wall, it is kind of challenging, right, for the glutes. So I want you to feel when your feet push a little bit into the wall, stretch your arms back, right, Superman, okay? So tummy time. So the glutes are going to wake up surprisingly evenly, like acknowledge how good they work sometimes, right? When brought to this position, they actually comply pretty well. So feel the supply feel your glute supply, how it coordinates. Some things work well. It's the joints that have the challenges sometimes, like the knee and the pushing down. So bring your elbows down under the shoulders, keep the knees up if you can, push into your feet, and start to strengthen around the legs, okay? So my elbows are down. I'm not on my palms per se. I'm pushing up here, okay? Sphinx pose, reach your chin forward. Okay, just forward, that's about it. Okay, and then I want you to keep the chest lifting. Relax the knees on the ground. Okay, breathe and slide your hands back. Now, as you come up, we're going to be coming on up, stretching into up dog. Now, if this is discomforting in your hands, I actually like the blocks a lot. Okay, you could be here, but then when you come up and you join us in cat-cow to table, you can use your blocks under your elbows. Okay, so some of us are going to be on the forearms. Remember, the blocks go up pretty high, right? It's pretty nice. Now, if your knees don't tolerate it, blanket under the knees. Okay, so round your back into flexing and extending. What if your hands are on the blocks? Great. I think this is easier on my wrist when my hands are on my blocks, but not everyone will agree. So if your feet are at the wall, I think it's helpful for my connection to my knees, actually, even if I have a blanket under my knees. So arch the spine, feel the curve that you can't even feel on the floor now. So pushing the floor away with your hands, arching the chest forwards. Exhale, hollow the belly. And arch. Last one. Okay, I want us to come into a forward fold of choice. So it could be child's pose. It might be a down dog and then a standing forward fold. So that's what I'm going to show now. So toes under. I love a wall for this one. Lift the knees up and I stretch my heels up at the wall and I stretch out through those armpits. Okay, now, if this is a strain game for you, what are you going to do if the wrist situation isn't going to work for you here? So you could put your elbows on your blocks. This is a great strengthener anyhow for your back muscles. And bring the palms together and lift up. Okay, and those of us that are, even if we have happy wrists, this is always a good one to do. It's very humbling to realize, yeah, if you take too many decades off this one, you'll find, wow, there's a lot of muscle that I can work through here. Okay? So take the moment here, down dog or forearm dog. Some people call that one dolphin. Okay, then I want you to walk your feet a little forward and then your hands back. And why not, if you want to use your blocks, use them. Okay? So for those of us with bone loss that's already been registered, right? We don't want to do this roundy back. We don't want to, I always say, we don't want floppy disks. So this is better for my back. then I don't want to even show you the alternate because it's not good. But you know, when you just drop forward. But some of us, maybe our back is okay with that, right? We haven't been given any diagnoses. So have this reach. Now, arching the spine probably is a little better just to keep that extension. So let's say you like to come down with holding your elbows like this. What I want you to focus on is the elbows moving away, not dropping in and creating more of that slump. So you can use this forearm hold to help you with traction in the spine, right? So I can make this movement of my elbows side to side like you're drawing a figure eight. And you can definitely let your head lower down. So why else would I need to get that inversion so the head below the heart is what I'm still looking towards. Now, I can do that here, right, with my blocks under my hand, so I feel a little bit more muscular engagement. My knees are slightly bending. Okay, now we're going to come up, so we'll bring our hands back to our hips, and then we push, and as we stand up, we're going to go into what I call the L shape. We're going to find a wall spot. You don't need a big spot, or you don't need to get a mat over there or anything. Find a spot. If you don't have a wall, maybe a desk or a chair or something in the space. And I want you to bring your hands to that space, whether it's a wall, a chair, desk, bed, probably the ottoman's too low, but a little bit of height so you can actually get nice spine extension. So you're pushing into something, bending your knees. So I have to keep a good bend in my knees for this one to keep my spine extending. It's not this, I hate to even show it, but I see people sometimes they're walking up the wall and their legs are straight and they're not doing a slump, but they're not doing any service to their back, or they're kind of hunching over. So have your hands pushing away. If this hurts your wrists, I've had that talked about too. You put your elbows at the wall. Okay, take a few breaths here, extending the spine. Little spine love. Okay, feel the back stretching. Oh, it feels so good. Okay, now when we come away, if you're over at like a desk or a chair, you're going to just walk towards it. And those of us at the wall, just be careful you don't hit your head at the wall. And then come back to your mat. Let's take a wide stance on our mat. So a wide stance. I remember some used to say this is how you preferred downward dog period, was just the wider stance so there's no pressure on the wrists. It just came back to me. Light bulb went off. Okay, just turned on my brain. So bring the legs out so the feet are parallel. They're not turning in and they're not turning out. If they turn anywhere, it's a little in. Okay. Knees are a funny prisoner of my legs, so I'm going to try to do the best I can. Feel the rear, move the hips back, stretch forward. The key is move your hips back, right? Don't tuck the tailbone under, just push the rear back. Okay? Now stretch the arms as far, I don't want to say you should go as far as possible, but reach them forward so the hands are on the blocks or the elbows, if that works better for you. And notice my feet are turning out, they're trying to slide, so I'm going to try and pivot in. Feel that big expanse through the legs, through the chest and the shoulders. Let your head nod. This is a really good one. You know, with our aging spine, right? We get expansion, we get extension. We don't create more wedging or, right, compression in the discs. We stretch it out. Okay, now take the blocks in if you're using them. Okay, and then we're going to turn to our left, and we're going to, or the right, it doesn't really matter where you go. You're going to go one direction. You got to go one direction to get out of this. And then as you lower down, I would say come down through a plank if you can. So if your elbows are on the blocks, you have to slowly get there, but you can't just suddenly drop an elbow on a block. If I have my hands on my blocks, I'm going to stretch my left leg back. I like them. I like the blocks usually lower than this, but they're not shaking around, so I'm okay. So find that circulation in your arms, that definition, breathing. Notice if your chin is forward, if your chin is in, try to keep it in neutral. It's not that easy. Use your abdominal muscles. All right, now when you lower down, see if you can find that hinge at the hips, like you're about ready to pounce forward, like spring forward. Okay, and then when you hinge, you're going to lower the knees, and we're going to take our bolster and turn it across, and then we'll put our elbows or our hands on that bolster and stretch out our back. Okay, reach out through the arms. Let your head maybe nod a little side to side. Pull the bolster in. All right, now I want you to get all your blankets. Now, if you happen to have brought 3, I know last time we did a thing where I wanted you to have 3. You might be using them all in this one today. So if you only have 2, it's really no big deal. You'll add a block for one thing instead of the extra blanket. So I'll show the 2 variations. So we're going to settle into side sage. Oh, and the sage collection. So get all the blankets. You don't need a belt. If you know you're going to use the 3rd one, just put it over to the side. I know this is almost like a cooking project, isn't it? I'm getting everything, all the ingredients around. And then I'm going to marinate in it. Okay. So I'm going to take the sandbag next to on my bolster because it's only easier that way. Take a ball, bring the legs together so they're stacked legs. Kind of a mermaid look. Okay. So you've got your ball at your left rib cage. You're going to lean in and put your elbow on the floor. If your ball's too puffed up, you might not be able to get your elbow down. That sometimes happens. So do the best that you can to not put strain on your left arm, in other words. So as I lean in with the ball, you can't really see the ball, huh? So it's here at my ribs. Okay, don't need this. That goes overhead. Okay, so I'm going to turn into the left and then open. Right. I imagine if you give this a moment, just a few moments before you do the sage collection, feel the breath when you're moving into it and when you're moving across the ribs. Okay, so the kind of notice is going inwards and down, moving into the ribs, and then just rubbing across. Okay, take the ball. If you don't have a block on the other side, set it up so you have something over on the other side, or a chair. Some of you use a chair for that, it's even better. Place the ball under the right inner knee or nothing at all. Okay, you don't have to use it. And then you have your sandbag here. Some people used an eye pillow last time for their neck. I heard that went pretty good. And then as you lean in, if you have an eye pillow, you might put it across your neck. You could also do the eye pillow in the sleeping sage pose when we turn, and it might work well. Sometimes something of really, one of the heavier eye pillows works good for this. It's a little foreign in the beginning when you try it, but then it does make sense, right? When you soften in the neck. It makes pretty good sense, just having that touch of the eye pillow. And if you don't use one, that's just fine. But feel how the arm in the middle is resting. So our line isn't quite there. Right? So you might take your blanket and make sure it's high enough for your neck to relax. You don't want it too high. You don't want it too low. It's personal. Whether it looks right or it doesn't look right, it's completely personal. Okay, my arm can move. I'm going to just let it go down the side. Keep that eye below. That feels good. Now feeling when your head shifts, resting the weight of the brain. Just taking the moments here to receive your breath. And relax on your out breath. We've done a lot of movements in our for our back muscles today. A lot of spine work and releasing as well. So now we're going to go into the Sage collection, giving it all its regenerative opportunity in these two poses collecting together. Now, something else you can do is put a little warm pillow on your neck. If you have someone that will go heat it up for you, right? Or if you have like an eye compress that you use, that's good for this too. Oh, now the extra good thing here. So we're going to move into the sleeping sage, and it's not far from this pose, right? You're pretty much in the zone. Okay? You're getting in the zone. All right, so as we're getting zoned here, I want you to feel when you're turning what parts of the core contribute to the movement. So caution, right? We just move our sand. Some people keep their sand on their hips when they twist. That's a little worrisome for the bone. So just be careful here. So when you come up, we don't want to do anything that's ultra pressure. So we're going to take the ball out and we're going to turn. So all you want to do is build a ramp. Now this could be blankets here. It could be blocks on this side, right? So if I use a block, for instance, maybe I have like 2 blankets total. I put a block here because they're extremely much more firm than a blanket under your bolster. It's going to create more of a ramp, support a ramp. Now, what I taught last time was that we had a blanket like so, where it was, you're going to have to check out your blanket and make sure that one of the ends that's under your belly is not going to be not that the fringe end's going to matter, but I have it about almost halfway up on the bolster, and then this is going to be holding my hip. It's like a hip cradle here. So once I'm on here, which I highly recommend trying, okay, I can either have a blanket here, which is what I'll add, or I can try without and see if this is relaxing for my neck. Okay, this again, you can put the sandbag on the neck. This is a little more easy on this one, I think. Okay, so you get to decide, do you want a blanket here? Right, maybe you want a blanket on the short end as well. Yeah, I feel like it's better without. I mean, that's been a lesson plan for decades. And I usually would go with the blanket just because I thought, but this makes some sense, but you have to just let it be what works for you. Not to say there isn't plenty of teachings where you can say either way is good. But if you do have the eye pillow, and if you don't have one, you're using something that's got a little bit of weight for support and soothing. It's not necessarily like you have to use it, but it is helpful. Yeah, you might have to have more padding under the rib cage, right? If it doesn't feel comfortable on the chest tissue, you might have even more blanket here at the belly. So there's more of a gap at the chest tissue, so it's not pushing into the bolster. So you can kind of play with that, right? I can always move it a little further down, or I can roll it up here. More of a gap in the chest, right? But it is going across the ascending to the descending colon and putting that pressure there. So it's up to you. I would say what feels better is what you're going to do. It's not going to be anything but feel. Now, when in your life can you just go with that, right? Just go with that once upon a time. Okay, dropping in, getting into the sleeping sage zone. As you relax the heart, you can probably hear it when you're on the left side. You can definitely notice the heart when you're leaning into your left side. And then we're going to just shift our hands under our shoulders and then come back to cobbler's pose. So have a blanket on top of the short end of the bolster and then turn. So you're sitting on this edge and you have maybe this blanket. I'm going to use it. So I'm right up against, and it feels like it slides away a little bit, but my head is on the blanket at this point. I lie back and I take a cobbler's pose, which I can't because I don't have the other block, can I? All right, so I'll take a cobbler's pose with the feet far down. Okay. So if you don't have the blocks under, like you have one of them under the bolster, take the shape for circulation in the leg pits, right? But if it feels too much, you don't have your feet close to you. Okay. Some of us were comfy with this for the pelvic floor. Some of us, this is too much. We draw the legs, move them down. But it is going to stretch around the ankles, isn't it? Right? You're going to feel that heels touching the soles of the feet towards each other. The hands interlace at the roots, turn the palms inside out, stretching overhead. Okay. And be careful that you're not rounding your neck a lot, right? So noticing if you have to slide your blanket back so it's right on the occiput, right? Remember, you want to feel that natural extension at your neck because you're making it at the lower back. So your lumbar spine is 50% of your back's curve comes from the lumbar because of the pelvis, right? That's the biggest spot in the body. The largest bone mass, right, is in the pelvis, the hips, pelvic bones, right? So feel that curve at the top because there you got the big old skull here, the bowling ball at the top. I know, but the most intelligent part is the pelvis, not this part on top, right? It's the second brain. Brain is in the belly, okay, not up here. Or what is it? Most of your serotonin is made in the gut. 70% of your lymph system, right, is the gut lymphatics. Okay, now bring the knees to point up and slide the feet into where it feels okay for your knees. So I have to be careful. I get kind of motivated and then I just slide the soles of the feet to the floor and that's all I need. Okay, move your hips to the left. So you're going to push into your feet, move your hips to the left, roll to the right. Okay. And then we're going to come into that side sage. I know it's a bummer to move all these props, but it's worth it to go into the sequencing correctly. So we're going to pull the bolster. Got my eye pillow. Got my ball. Right ribs, lean in. Knees stacked. Stack the legs, lean in. And then feeling when you're pushing on the ball that sometimes you have it too far towards the armpit. I'm going to test this out. I don't think you're going to miss out putting the ball a little bit further back. But I won't know until I try. Okay, so you might have to change where the ball is if your elbow doesn't come to the floor easily. Remember, part of it is your bolster density, right? The firmness of the bolster affects this whole part. And then as you turn, as the ribs turn, okay, now feeling where the pressure is in between the rib muscles, right? I love this part. I would do this for, take half the time out of the pose just to massage in the ribs. So right thigh moves up towards the bolster, ball under the left knee, and then I'm going to lean in, and I kind of know where to go with this. I grab my block, I take my blanket, and I place it so I've got my stack. Now looks like it would be enough, but you know what? You don't know till you get there. So I would think if I have to get the blanket higher that there's something wrong with my neck. It's one side could be tighter than the other. So this is a good time for leaning in, getting your blanket to the appropriate height. You don't even have to have the ambition to get to your block. You don't have to. No have to's. The eye pillow might work. I was going to say this, the sand pillow. Okay, I should make one of these with sand. Okay. I don't think that would feel as good. I think the flaxseed is kind of my favorite. Okay, now reaching with the left arm. Maybe it's down the side. And you know, all these things are transitioning, right? Your eye pillow is probably flowing around, your hip is almost kind of centered, your right hip has all the weight bearing on it, with the left hip proportionally above it and leaning in. So you're using your own body parts to weight other parts for the bones. So it's fairly clever. Okay. We're clever. So as our waist is stretching with the breath, I'm not trying to suck the belly in, I'm trying to use the shape to naturally stretch my center. And then the key for me is to really relax my head on the blankets. That's where I need to work, is head resting. Okay, meaning you could even bring your left arm around and relax it down like you're sleeping. Take a few moments here, just feeling the body resting into the props. Feel supported. If anything's bugging you, let's say your knee doesn't like this, you're going to stack the knees. Okay, sometimes it just starts to feel uncomfortable. Now, even better, when we come into our next sage pose, our last sage pose, you'll feel from this shape into the twist how much the twist helps the circulation up the upper ribs. So the neck might feel more comfortable in this last one, almost the last one. Okay, so we're going to twist. We just keep turning, keep on twisting. I turn, okay, and then I'm going to take, I think I like the blanket on top. I think I like this block under. I don't know, I like them all, but I think just for changing it up, switching it up, the blanket on here is an option. Now, I know not all of us are going to do that. I try to find a blanket or like a beach towel for this part with the blanket here. So this is what's called a Shavasana blanket. They sell these at one of these places in India, but they're extremely, I just love these. These are really soft. I actually have some extra ones. When I don't know if you remember Bonnie at the studio at the Yoga Loft, but when she decided to stop teaching, she gave me all the props and said, just give them out, give them away, don't sell any of them, but you can have them. So slowly but surely, I have been able to distribute these, but you have to ask. You can't have it until you ask. All it takes is asking. Okay, so I'm going to have my hips center, my right hip center. So I like this. Of course, I like anything I get some sort of abdominal massage. You know, so if you have scar tissue, pelvis, pelvic floor, this is a good one. So extend down, turn your head left. Now, I personally am finding somehow that this is probably better for me not to have the blanket. Okay, I do feel like that was making my neck round too much. So I finally kind of figured that out. Doesn't mean I'll always do it that way. You'll catch me. Okay, so as I put the sand pillow on my neck, let your head turn. Now, a sandbag would be too much on your neck. Okay, just know that. Don't put a sandbag on the neck. That's too much weight. So this is extremely light, resting your head and breathe. You could do something like the eyeglass, that you put your glasses in. Some of those are you could put some, like a bag, like a Ziploc of rice. That would probably be good, or flaxseed in one of those, and use that. You don't have to get an eye pillow. You can use that as your eye pillow as well. So you might already have something around. So feel the belly push into the bolster. Notice the parts of the abdominals, the liver, that pressure into the right side of the core into the liver, right? You can feel that pressure. It might be kind of dense. It might not have a lot of sensation, but you can feel that mass of movement around it, right? The fascia, the membrane around the organ is alive. It's a living, is breathing, alive tissue. Okay, now push into your hands, and then coming up, what we'll do is we're going to build a little cascading Shavasana ramp coming up. So when we come up, this is a little different. I want you to simply come up to your seat and get your bolster. Okay, and what we'll do is we're going to set our bolster up on a block. So it's going to be like this. The bolster's across horizontal. You're going to put a block in the middle of the bolster at the lowest setting. So you have a little bit of a ramp. And then you're going to add, and if you got lots of blankets, just have them so you can put one over you, okay? You can have one under your head, you can have one under your ankles, you can have one over your belly, or if you have a warm pack, you can put that on your belly. I think that's really, really good to do. So we're going to roll up. You can also swaddle. You can wrap it around you. I don't know. I feel a little claustrophobic with that sometimes. So you're going to roll up the blanket at the base. Now, if you have a blanket that's not quite this big, you can kind of wad it up. Sometimes I'll put 2 blocks under my feet too. I've played around with all kinds of things on this one. Like, well, I don't know, is this exactly what I need? But this is kind of the consensus, right? I call this cascading Shavasana. I just made that up. But anyway, so it's called Deep Relaxation 2. So have your blanket that you're going to put on you, if you're going to have one on you, and then the blanket under your head. We're going to do the head and neck support again. So I'm going to show this. If you don't like to mess with this whole head and neck support thing I'm learning, you don't have to bother with it, but I think it is helpful. So you're going to take the blanket out. So you're going to fold it up so that the back of it, you fold it in. Now the place that's has no fringe on the end should be, you want this to be the smooth side. Then the blanket's about halfway down folded. And this isn't actually even perfect, right? This is so. Okay. Now I'm going to put this at the back, so it's going to go under my head. The head's going to go on here. Now, if you don't like this variation, this is another one it's really easy. You just make it into a V. I think of it as the V neck. And then the pointy end is at your C7. It's anywhere between C7 and T2. Any of those areas will be fine. This is nice too. This other one it's pretty, I think this is great. So instead of trying to fold it up when you get back, fold the ends under so you're like this with the blanket for your head support. So you're gonna have this little cradle for your head. See that? It's like a cradle. I roll it under. Okay. It's worth it. It's worth it. I know you're thinking, now what the heck? I think it's worth it. I actually did it for a while. So legs on the short end, so my knees are supported. I like to kind of give the back of my knee and open it up a little bit. And then I have my blanket roll under my ankles. I'm going to roll it down a little bit so I can feel it on my heel. I like that. To me, that's good. And then when I lower down, I've got my blanket right at C7 the end. And then I'm going to roll it under the corner so it kind of lifts my head up slightly. Another thing you can use, you're like, what? I could have just used a throw pillow. You can use a small pillow as well. But this holds right at my occiput, so it's just cradled. Okay? All right, I hope I got all my things here. So I'm going to get my sandbag on my belly or my heart to my belly. You're the decider. Yeah, I know how good this is at the belly. Okay? I don't always think that. Okay, so you get to decide. Remember, your blanket is not under your ribs. It's just at the top. Okay? And then if you have a blanket over you, so you have a little bit more warmth, even if it's warm around you, that kind of cocooning, right? So you have a little bit of support and weight. And if you start deciding you don't like this blanket set up under your head, you can just move it away and just have a little sliver of a blanket. It is okay. It does take a little bit of ultra practice. When I started doing this head support last August, to be honest, I didn't really start liking it till now at all. So we could have a whole little lesson in it. Eye pillow over your eyes. If you don't use an eye pillow, you don't have to, but having that curtain of darkness is one level of down regulating, right? When you're at the end of your yoga practice, it gives you the whole deal. There are going to be parts of your props that don't feel exactly perfect right now. So instead of fussing too much, let only fuss be where the weight is on the belly. Remember, the lower it is might feel better for some of us. If it's at the navel or above, it could be uncomfortable for your breathing muscles. It's at the end of your end range of your diaphragm is where you have the weight. So the diaphragm has that resistance training to strengthen the diaphragm. And then the arms can rest on the belly or down by your sides. And just let your arms open a little bit so the heart gently expands. And let's inhale the breath. And as you relax on your out breath, empty the lungs. Just feel where you go into the center, deep center of the brain. And noticing that deep touch into the brain, right at that brain stem, stimulating the circulation in the brain, healing, regenerating. And finally, relaxing your mouth, your jaw, your teeth, and your tongue. Now, if you feel that you need to stay here or that you have the time to be in this pose a little bit longer, then do stay. Or beginning to remove any of the coverings, right? It would be your eye pillow last, right? It would be the sandbag and the blanket on the core or the knees. And then just slide the feet up onto the bolster. Remember, they kind of hover a little bit, but it's okay to push the bolster. It's not going to do anything back to you. But feel when the feet are on that edge, kind of rim of the bolster, you can feel that the tailbone relax. That's the key, is the relaxed tailbone. And then just roll to a side and let your hands help move you up to sitting. Let the shoulders roll themselves with your intention of movement of your shoulders, shrugging and rolling back and down. And then let your head tilt to one side. And then carefully to the other. Let's bring our hands towards our heart center, bowing into our hearts, uniting our breath, breathing in wellness to yourself and to others. Belly soft, and as we exhale, bowing in to the peace within your heart.